New York City, 1905. The Lower East Side was the most crowded square mile on Earth. Escaping pogroms in Eastern Europe, hundreds of thousands of immigrants arrived, carrying just two things: their faith and their indispensable recipes. In cramped, smoky, kosher tenement kitchens, ancient food traditions became the fuel for survival and the anchor for their identity. Every pushcart and every stove held a precious piece of the old world. These are the 25 forgotten dishes that built Jewish America. Number 1. Pacha. This was not a delicacy, but a poor man's protein, a dish that symbolized making something substantial from the humblest parts of the animal. It began by boiling calves or cows' feet for hours until the collagen released, and the broth thickened into a potent, savory jelly that captured all the essence of the bones. Once cooled and set, it was often served cut into cubes and heavily seasoned with sharp vinegar, crushed garlic, and sometimes a sliced hard-boiled egg for color and contrast. The rubbery, chilled texture and the strong, vinegary taste were a jolt to the system, an acquired taste that spoke directly to the necessity of minimizing waste in tenement life. A spoonful of picha proved that even the lowest cost ingredients could provide the necessary gelatin and protein for a day of relentless work or pedaling a pushcart on Delancey Street. The gelatin provided a satisfying mouthfeel that felt substantial when hunger was constant. Many learned to appreciate its restorative quality after a long, cold day. It was a symbol of triumph over scarcity. Number 2. Kasha varnishkis, a simple, sustaining marriage of Old World grain and New World affordability. This dish quickly became an Ashkenazi staple across the neighborhoods. Kasha, or toasted buckwheat groats, were prepared by first mixing them with a beaten egg before cooking them slowly in rich stock, ensuring each grain remained separate and delightfully nutty. It was then tossed generously with varnishks, the diminutive bow tie pasta, and plenty of deeply caramelized onions, bathing the entire mixture in the incomparable flavor of rendered chicken fat or schmaltz. The earthy, slightly smoky flavor of the kasha, combined with the soft texture of the pasta, offered a hearty, filling comfort that expertly stretched meager food budgets across large, hungry families. This warm bowl embodied the immigrant's genius for combining familiar textures with new, accessible ingredients to achieve a genuine sense of domestic warmth amidst the surrounding urban poverty. The constant scent of the toasting groats signaled a meal of real substance. For many, it was the taste of a dependable weeknight dinner. Number 3. Gribins. These intensely crispy cracklings were a cherished byproduct of the crucial process of making schmaltz, the rendered poultry fat that served as the primary cooking medium in a strictly kosher kitchen. Small pieces of chicken or goose skin were slowly fried in their own fat over low heat until they shrank into tiny, golden, intensely savory, and utterly addictive morsels. The rhythmic, popping, sizzling sound of the gribins in the pan was the true sound of a Sabbath Eve kitchen, signaling the creation of a week's worth of essential, flavorful fat. They were enjoyed as a luxurious snack or sprinkled like savory croutons over humble mashed potatoes or kasha, proving that nothing in the valuable bird was ever thrown away. The sharp crunch between the teeth was a moment of pure, unadulterated flavor. Children would fight over the last dark pieces left in the bottom of the rendering pot. This simple food was a testament to maximizing every resource. Number 4. Borscht. More than a mere soup, borscht was a life-sustaining reservoir of vital vegetable nutrition, a recipe beautifully adaptable to the changing seasons and the family's current wallet. The core preparation was straightforward. Deep red beets, carrots, and often cabbage were simmered slowly with onions and potatoes, creating a broth that could be served piping hot in winter, or refreshingly cold with a dollop of sour cream, smetana, during the summer heat. The flavor profile masterfully balanced earthy sweetness with a bright, essential tanginess, often achieved by adding lemon juice, vinegar, or even fermented beet kvass for depth. This vibrant crimson liquid stained the mouths of every immigrant child, serving as an instant visual connection to the old country and a reminder that true deep sustenance came from the roots of the earth. The soup's color alone was often the brightest thing in the tenement apartment. It was the doctor, the comfort, and the centerpiece of a simple supper. Number 5. Helsel, stuffed chicken neck. A classic example of resourceful poverty cooking, Helzel ingeniously turned the often discarded neck skin of the chicken into a savory, cylindrical casing holding rich flavor. This skin was meticulously cleaned, stuffed with a flavorful mixture of flour, breadcrumbs, sautéed onions, and generous amounts of schmaltz, then carefully stitched closed with thread. It was baked slowly, often alongside a larger roast chicken, allowing the stuffing to absorb the rich meat juices, resulting in a dark, crackling crust and a dense, deeply satisfying interior. This mock meat creation was meant to add bulk and the appearance of luxury to a modest meal, proving that a creative hand could find dignity and deliciousness even in the scraps traditionally discarded by wealthier cooks. The savory aroma permeated the entire floor of the building. Every thread had to be removed before serving, a small ritual before the reward. Number 6. Cholent, Sabbath stew. The quintessential Sabbath dish, cholent was a dense, slow-cooked stew prepared meticulously every Friday before sundown and kept barely warm until Saturday lunch, strictly obeying the religious prohibition against cooking on the Sabbath. It was a simple yet miraculous mixture of beans, barley, tougher cuts of meat, potatoes, and a bone, all tightly sealed into a pot and left to transform slowly in the oven overnight. The long, low heat yielded a profound, earthy depth of flavor and a comforting, cohesive texture that reliably filled the tenement apartment with a deep, welcoming aroma all day Saturday. The satisfying sound of a spoon scraping the bottom of the cholent pot on Saturday afternoon was the sound of a community united by shared tradition and the promise of a guaranteed hot, traditional meal. The slightly scorched layer at the very bottom, Leichnik, was considered the greatest delicacy. It represented patience perfected into flavor. Number 7. Teiglaach, honey balls. These small, marble-sized balls of dough were boiled briefly in a thick, sticky sweet syrup made from honey and sometimes ginger until they were chewy, heavily glazed, and hardened into a delightful, sugary confection. Often adorned with whole almonds or aromatic spices for extra luxury, teiglaach were reserved strictly for important celebratory occasions, particularly the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah. Their dense sweetness and the sheer labor of their preparation spoke volumes about the sacrifice and importance given to holiday traditions, providing a bright spot of intense, sugary joy in the often gloomy material existence of the Lower East Side. Eating them was a silent, sweet prayer for a prosperous and joyful year ahead, a little piece of preserved happiness. The stickiness meant your fingers remained sweet for hours afterward. Number 8. Ingberlach, ginger candy. A small, pungent, and intensely sweet candy, Ingberlach was made by carefully cooking thin slices of fresh ginger root in a thick sugar syrup, which was then poured into a pan and cut into small, sharp squares. It functioned almost as a traditional folk medicine, believed to aid digestion and offer internal warmth during the harsh New York winters. Its powerful, spicy aroma often mingled with the smell of fresh rye bread, wafting from the neighborhood community bakeries down the block. This affordable, potent treat gave the working immigrant a quick, needed energy boost, offering a momentary, fiery distraction from the cold and the strain of the long day. It was a tiny spark of heat against the urban chill. Number 9. Matzo Brie, fried matzo. A dish born of ultimate simplicity and the necessity of utilizing humble ingredients. Matzo brie was a staple of Passover that many continued to enjoy year-round for its comfort and low cost. Broken pieces of matzo, unleavened bread, were soaked thoroughly in a mixture of beaten egg and milk or water, then pan-fried in hot schmaltz or oil until golden brown and slightly scrambled in texture. It was remarkably versatile, eaten savory, seasoned simply with salt, pepper, and perhaps some fried onions, or sweet, dusted liberally with cinnamon and sugar or a smear of leftover jelly. The rapid sizzle as the egg-soaked matzo instantly hit the hot pan was often the morning alarm clock in many crowded homes, reflecting the rapid-fire adaptation of a core, ritualistic food into a practical daily breakfast. The resulting texture was uniquely satisfying, crisp on the outside, soft within. Number 12. Vardenijk's krepelach, dumplings. These were the ultimate expression of family warmth and collaborative kitchen effort, small, pinched pockets of dough filled with savory mashed potatoes, farmer's cheese, or sometimes ground meat remnants. The laborious dough-making and meticulous pinching process often became a communal, multi-generational activity. The flour dusting the worn, scarred wooden tables of the tenement apartment. Boiled until tender and then often pan-fried with onions until gloriously golden crisp, they offered a delicious textural contrast of soft dough and savory, hot filling, the act of making and sharing them being a powerful, tangible link to the old world. The steam rising from the pot promised immediate comfort. Number 13. Mandelbrot, almond bread biscotti. Meaning almond bread, this crunchy, twice-baked cookie was the Ashkenazi answer to Italian biscotti, serving as the perfect sturdy companion to a glass of hot, brewed tea. The dough, often enriched with oil, eggs, and slivered almonds, was first baked in loaves, then carefully sliced, and finally baked again until perfectly brittle and golden brown. The satisfying snap of the crisp cookie was the sound of a quiet, reflective moment stolen amid the chaos. A small indulgence that required no refrigeration and could keep fresh for weeks, offering a portable luxury for the long day of labor. It was a sweet piece of structure in an unstructured environment. Number 14. Kishke paski stuffed dirma, stuffed intestine. A prime example of the mature, clever one, spirit-defining immigrant survival, kishke was a savory stuffing of flour, farina, suet, beef fat, and spices, traditionally packed tightly into a casing made from cleaned beef intestine, dirma. It was cooked slowly submerged either in a roast or submerged within the solent, where it had hours to absorb the surrounding rich flavors, becoming unbelievably soft and unctuous. The final product, moist, peppery, and incredibly rich, was essential for adding much-needed flavor and body to a dish that otherwise lacked sufficient expensive meat, a perfect culinary reflection of the necessity for creativity driven by poverty. This was true nose-to-tail eating born of necessity, not trend. Number 15. Pirigen knishes, baked or fried dough pockets. While the niche is better known today in its modern form, its roots lay deep in Pirigen, baked or fried dough pockets most commonly filled with mashed potatoes, kasha, or simple cheese. These hearty, handheld bundles were the perfect street vendor food, cheap to produce in bulk and incredibly easy to carry while navigating the crowded sidewalks of Hester Street. The crisp exterior yielding instantly to a hot, savory interior provided an immediate, satisfying source of energy, representing the immigrants' successful adaptation of old-world foodways to the relentless, fast pace of New York life. They were the original grab-and-go meal. Number 16. Leikach honey cake. Leikach was the classic, dark, heavily spiced, honey-sweetened cake, strongly associated with the high holidays like Rosh Hashanah, often flavored deeply with strong coffee or black tea to deepen its color. Its dense, moist texture and warm, intoxicating aroma were a powerful, tangible promise of sweetness and tradition, filling the tenement apartment with the profound scent of a new year beginning. The baking of this cake, which often required a significant investment in precious ingredients like honey, was a profound testament to the community's fierce commitment to maintaining their religious and cultural identity despite material hardship. The dark color was a sign of its richness. Number 17. Beet kvass, fermented beet drink. This was not a sophisticated beverage, but a sharp probiotic tonic, made by the simplest means, fermenting sliced beets in water, often with a small slice of rye bread added to kickstart the necessary process. It possessed an intensely earthy and bracingly sour taste, serving as a cheap, home-brewed restorative drink and a source of essential vitamins and hydration when fresh produce was scarce. The cloudy red liquid was a daily ritual for many older immigrants, a profound belief in the healing power of simple, traditional foods, offering a direct, sour connection to the rustic cuisine of the old country. It was cheap medicine for the body and the soul. Number 18. Gefilte fish, poached fish dumplings. Gefilte fish was a quintessential Sabbath and holiday dish, a highly symbolic food that represented a culinary puzzle solved through centuries of adaptation. Native river fish like carp or pike were meticulously ground up, mixed with matzo meal, onion, and spices, shaped into neat ovals, and then poached slowly in a rich, flavorful fish stock until firm. The final product, served chilled, often atop a bright orange carrot slice, was a delicate, slightly sweet dumpling that allowed families to stretch a small amount of expensive fish to feed many hungry mouths. The relentless clatter of the heavy chopping knife against the cutting board as the fish was prepared was a classic kosher kitchen sound, a sonic signature of devotion and careful preparation. The taste signaled the sanctity of the day. Number 19. Bokelech, small rolls. These were the simple, round, everyday rolls, less ornate than challah, but an absolute foundation of the daily diet. Baked fresh every morning in the neighborhood community bakeries, often made with darker rye or a mix of cheaper flours, they were the perfect vehicle for any meal, ideal for soaking up rich gravy or simply spreading with a thin layer of butter, or more often schmaltz. The sight of them piled high in a basket on the kitchen table offered a constant, visual promise that there would at least be bread for the family, a small but vital assurance against the ever-present threat of hunger. Their humble presence anchored the daily routine. Number 20. Latkes, potato pancakes. Though most famously associated with Hanukkah, latkes were an anytime treat born of utter simplicity. Grated potatoes, bound with a little onion and egg, and fried aggressively in hot oil until intensely crisp and golden brown all over. The joyful spitting sound of the wet batter hitting the hot fat was the very essence of delicious indulgence, filling the tenement floor with the heavenly aroma of frying potatoes and onions. Served piping hot, either with sweet applesauce or a dab of cooling sour cream, they represented a perfect example of using the cheapest available staple, the potato, to create a dish of profound, immediate comfort. The crisp texture was the goal. Number 21. Zimi's Sweet Carrot Stew. A brightly colored, profoundly symbolic side dish, Zimi's was a slow-simmered medley of carrots and sweet dried fruits like prunes or apricots, often sweetened further with honey and sometimes enriched with chunks of stewing meat. The carrot's bright orange color and inherent sweetness were specifically intended to symbolize a bright and prosperous future, hence its frequent appearance during holidays like Rosh Hashanah for good fortune. This dish was an intentional, loving act of creating beauty and sweetness in a life that was often gray and demanding, serving as an infusion of emotional warmth. Its sweetness was a deliberate act of hope against hardship. Number 22. Flanken, short ribs or plate. This consisted of cuts like short ribs or a thin slice of the plate section of beef, cooked for hours in a deeply flavorful, onion-heavy broth until the meat fell apart tenderly. This long, low cooking process transformed a tough, inexpensive cut into a deeply satisfying main dish, often served simply with its rich cooking liquid and some boiled root vegetables. The heavy, savory steam that rose from a bowl of flanken on a Friday night was the definitive smell of Sabbath luxury, a welcome respite and reward for the week's back-breaking labor. The broth itself was highly prized for dipping bread. Number 23. Holishkes Golabki, stuffed cabbage. A universal East European comfort food, the Jewish version involved tender, slightly wilted cabbage leaves wrapped around a savory sweet filling of ground beef, rice, and sometimes breadcrumbs for binding. These carefully constructed bundles were then simmered for hours in a rich, slightly sweet and sour tomato sauce, creating a complex, layered flavor that was the ultimate expression of old-world slow cooking. The labor of meticulously rolling each holishkes was an act of profound maternal love, filling the tenement apartment with the reassuring aroma of tradition slowly coming to fruition. The aroma promised a special, cherished meal. Number 24. Schlissel challah, kai-shaped challah. While standard challah was the traditional braided Sabbath bread, the Schlissel challah was a special, often unbraided loaf, baked after Passover, symbolically shaped like a key, or sometimes featuring a small metal key baked inside. This unique shape was a folk custom meant to serve as a direct, edible prayer for parnsah, livelihood, and good fortune for the coming year. The wonderful smell of the sweet, egg-rich dough baking in the community oven was a powerful, hopeful scent, successfully blending deep faith and daily hunger into a tangible petition for a better life in the New World. This bread was a literal offering of hope. Number 25 is bialis, onion pockets. The bialy was arguably the Lower East Side's most authentic answer to the bagel, a soft bread roll that was baked, not boiled, and whose defining feature was a depression in the center, lovingly filled with toasted onions and poppy seeds. Named after the Polish town of Białystok, it was a crisp-edged, slightly chewy, and intensely flavorful pocket of history, sold piping hot at nearly every corner bakery and pushcart, cheaper and often more humble than its boiled cousin. The Bialy's earthy, oniony scent was one of the signature, unmistakable smells of Hester and Delancey Streets. A simple, unpretentious food that belonged entirely to New York's newest Americans. It was the taste of the street itself. These 25 dishes were more than just food. They were the currency of survival, the living memory of a life left behind, and the bold promise of a future being built day by day. Cooked with sacrifice and immense love in tiny, steamy kosher kitchens, they turned scraps into essential sustenance and poverty into delicious, comforting cuisine that sustained the soul. Every spoonful of coolant, every crisp latke, and every chewy baile carried the weight of a 1,000-mile journey and the concentrated warmth of 100 crowded, hopeful hearts crammed into small rooms. This culinary tapestry, woven masterfully with faith, hunger, and creativity, didn't just nourish the bodies of the immigrants, it built the foundational flavors of Jewish American identity and indelibly shaped the magnificent, chaotic culinary history of New York City forever. They fed a people, not just a family.